Bum, 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 bum.
Bum bum.
Welcome to Bom 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 Bom. No, welcome to Star Trek Trek, our ongoing journey through the episodes of Star Trek, and we are beginning our Summer of Voyager, whichever month this is. But we're going to be running through the entirety of Voyager Season 5 because it's just banger after banger. We've started off.
You guys are in for a treat.
Seriously, this as I've said previously, my knowledge of Voyager is quite low. I think I've watched everything at least once, and it was a long time ago, probably when it aired. So this is nice to kind of have an excuse to kind of go back to these episodes. And we've just finished watching Night, and do you know what? I do have a problem. I have the problem with these good episodes is that I don't know what to talk about. I just want to kind of that was great. Can we watch some more, please? Please, sir.
Yeah.
I'd like some more of this good shit.
We have a court-mandated 1 hour we have to ramble about before we get to enjoy another episode.
Yeah. All right. All right, go on. You start.
I know where to start. Actually, I have a choose-your-own-adventure starts, but I'll go with the more freeform one. Stars, you mentioned before we started, this would be in your top 10 of episodes to show someone for the concept of Voyager, and I thought, that's kind of weird. This is not they're not really all that heroic and everything. They don't show a lot of Starfleet. But by the end of this, I'm like, there's not a single damn thing they could have done that would have added an element they didn't already have. They had two new aliens, cool designs, cool starships, cool starship battles. They lit everything differently. They had multiple styles of humor, from the dry deadpan of Doc and Tuvok to Captain Proton. They had a holodeck episode. They had people boarding the ship and phaser fights. There's every single Star Trek trope for good and for bad, or mostly for good. They shoved into this 45 minutes, and it was delightful.
Yeah, no, I always forget that Captain Proton debuted here, in the same episode as
the
Malon, which is just.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I double checked it. It's this is the very first time it was going to be in there, and it's just I always think of Captain Proton as just such a part of Voyager. It's no, it's only the last 2 seasons, and it was fairly it appears in 10 different episodes in various different capacities. But it's I love it so much that I consider it to be part of the fabric of the show. And it's just what a good opener for it as well, and a good way to slowly ease yourself into the concept. But yeah, no, I definitely think that if you want a cross section of what 90s era Trek is and its strengths, and maybe a tiny bit of its weaknesses, this is a very, very good example. It's a perfect vertical slice, as it were, of
it's very ensemble too. Everybody helped to figure out the solution together, and they all relied on each other. Neelix was hanging on Chakotay's shoulder. You had Seven and Paris figuring that out in the holodeck.
You
Janeway
do kind
says,
of get the little
I don't trust anyone more than you, Chakotay.
Yeah.
He has to pull her out of her funk. Everybody is helping everybody else.
You do. Just going back to that thought you were saying about this being someone's first Voyager episode. You do kind of get a little bit of facet of every single character. You get B'Elanna's anger and fieriness. You get her and Tom's relationship. You get Harry's sort of sentimentality with his music. You get Tuvok's Vulcanness, essentially, and Neelix's Neelixness, in this. You kind of do get a little bit of every character. In Seven as well, Seven's very much have you tried meditation? No. Have you tried a Borg cortical implant? It's good for the soul.
Chance is irrelevant. We will succeed. That was so good. Oh, and then when Satan's robot attacks her, she goes, "I am Borg," and she just pulls it out and the little arms flap over.
Yeah, and it's guess what? It's also a case of if you watch this episode, you get a distorted idea of just how much Chakotay gets to do in this series. But
he was in almost every scene, and he was
did
good in a couple
lot,
of them,
actually.
but they
This is what he should have been for the entire series.
It's almost you can write him to be a competent, good first officer if you try really hard.
All right, well, let's break that down then, because I have actually been bashing him a bit lately. He was a good diplomat when they're in engineering. He says, what matters is we're talking now. You can turn this to your advantage. He's trying to sell the guy. He's a good first officer. He calls Janeway out on her bullshit. She later leans on him. He strikes a bit of a heroic pose when he's helping Neelix through his fear and fighting the alien. And then
come on, Med.
On the bridge. He gets Tuvok ready on the bridge. Tuvok and everyone else to don't trust Catherine and her bullshit. She's going to try to kill herself again. So it was good all around. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and it literally is every single character gets a little moment to shine, even if it's just a small thing. And it's just it also really leans heavily into Voyager's strengths, which I always thought that Voyager had really, really good, strong creature design, and it played around with space in a ways that I think TNG sometimes was maybe a little bit afraid of doing. Like I don't think TNG kind of would have done something a little bit as oblique as this, because it played space a bit more conventionally, I think. Whereas Voyager has this, it has the other episode which is called The Void. Has like the whole photonic aliens with the whole Brida Chaotica. Like it was more willing to just go, this part of space is just fucked, and just weird, and make that the episode, which I kind of appreciated.
Are you playing with your Stream Deck, Idol?
No, I'm playing with my cup. Actually, sorry.
Okay.
I realized how
you're in the same
looked.
position. I think like you're about to throw us to a segment or something.
No, sorry. No, that's if I do that.
You're stressing me out.
I love the idea of the void in this. I love the idea that this is the first episode, because I said it while we're watching along. Very often, especially in this era of Trek, everything's a two-parter. Like everything comes, like every season finale has a follow-up, or is it part 1, part 2, or DS9's like, oh yeah, this directly follows up from the previous episode. This is like gone from Hope and Fear, which was the season 4 finale, which was the Dauntless one, where it's sort of like Janeway and Seven.
That's a good episode.
That's a really good episode. Straight into this, and like I enjoy it. And this is straight in. Shit's fucked. We're in the middle of the Delta Quadrant. We're lost. We know our way home. Everything's black. We're all hopeless. We're despairing. And in the background, Ronald D. Moore's like, "Can we do this the entire series, please? If not, I'm just going to go over and get the Battlestar Galactica rights." Lo and behold, he did.
Yeah, Overtime also points out, the Void is especially a good way of exemplifying what Voyager is all about, because, it's if you did this in TNG or in DS9, you can just go back to the Federation, and the Voyager just does not have that option. Yeah. You can more uniquely force people into situations that they just have to deal with.
It is. I mean, it would be very depressing for the viewers as well if we just saw nothing but blackness. But I mean, it's a shame this only lasted for the one episode. This could have been like a 3 or 4 episode arc, maybe. That would have maybe got it a bit more attention.
Would have been interesting.
Yeah.
So there's another one. I forget the name of it, where they get sucked into an anomaly. It's a one-way anomaly, and they find other ships there have been sucked in. I think it's like
literally called The Void.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, is that the one? Then?
Also,
and
I often get this
similar.
one and that one I often get this one and that one confused, because they literally call it The Void in this episode.
Yeah, it's a similar. Actually, they do that with our next episode, where they call Drone, but the drone is called One, but they already had an episode called One, so they couldn't call it One.
Yeah, but they do that a lot in Voyager. It's very.
But
silly,
never mind the episode called First Contact, which has Jonathan Frakes in it as a main character, but is not related to First Contact, which was directed by Jonathan Frakes and is also the main character. Can't confuse our audience at all.
Such an incestuous franchise. I can't believe they do this over and over. I have a lot of topics. So
Can I just interject?
Right,
shall we go with, this was directed by the one and only David Livingston, who has directed so much Star Trek and is usually excellent in everything. This was written by Brannon Braga and Joe Manowski, who we've previously covered on a previous episode fairly recently. He did The Nth Degree, Darmok, Time's Arrow, Future's End, Scorpion, Year of Hell.
He did our last episode, Latent Image.
And Lethe with Ted from Discovery, with Ted Sullivan. So this is some good.
He's a good writer. These are good episodes.
Mm-hmm.
All right, you've fallen for one of my segue traps. I want to talk about Joe Manowski, because I don't think we've done it before. He is a good writer. 57 writing or teleplay credits in Star Trek, one of them in Discovery. And they, so he did Latent Image. He was in a bunch of season 5 episodes. Night Drone, we're doing both those today. Latent Image, Timeless, 2 fucking bangers. The Fight, which is, not great. Dark Frontier, 1159, and the Equinox 2-parter, all in one season. So he was really involved.
I'm going to be controversial and say I actually really like 1159.
So do I. I'm gonna go to bat for it when we watch.
I will as well. Well, I think it's just very unique, and I'm more willing to get. I feel like it's just it does a lot of what Carbon Creek does, but it does it in a very different way. I appreciate it.
We'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there. Yeah, but yeah, it's you're saying all these things, all these episodes. There's such a good, strong character writing in all of these pieces. Like Lethe is Discovery episode is one of my favorite Burnham episodes, and also because it focuses so heavily on her relationship with Sarek, and just really drilling down into the relationships between characters and what makes certain character combinations work. And you can kind of see that here, where like we were bringing it up during the watch show, and there's a lot of unconventional pairings that you get here, like the Chakotay and Neelix stuff, and Chakotay and Tuvok as well, where it's like these are not relationships that get pilled on very often. But when you do, oh yeah, there's material here, and like obviously the actors are perfectly capable of like selling it when they get the chance. But yeah, no, there's like, lots of really good character writing.
He also did the teleplay for Darmok, which no explanation needed. But he had a set of interesting episodes that he did the teleplay on. Blink of an Eye, Living Witness, Clues. All episodes where you kind of have to bounce around structurally, story-wise. There's like a time element. And if I did the teleplay for Clues, that would be the top of my CV, because that is a masterpiece in terms of it's very like cause and effect, where you have to reshoot the same scenes over and over, but make them feel different. You have to make it all make sense without confusing the viewer about doing time jumps. That is more difficult than it sounds. So great job on the teleplays. He also did 1 billion two-parters: Time's Arrow, Future's End, Scorpion, Year of Hell, Killing Game, Equinox, and Unimatrix Zero. So I feel like when Trek needed a two-parter, they called Joe Menosky and said, "What do you got cooking?" So
Davidians.
Very good. And my last note on Menosky, which was my favorite memory off of Poll when prepping for today, he wrote an Orville episode in season 2. Sanctuary, directed by Jonathan Frakes, starring Marina Sirtis, F. Murray Abraham, Tony Todd, and Ron Canada. So it was basically it was a full-on Star Trek episode. I watched it this morning. It was good. It was about gender rights, and it was worth a watch.
Yeah, is that kind of a Bortus episode, if I remember rightly?
Yeah,
The
Mocklin females are outcast because they're seen as lesser, and there's like an underground railroad of women going to freedom. So it is worth a watch. Yeah.
Cool.
So that's what I think about Joe Menosky. He's very good.
He's A-okay.
And you know what? I want to go to bat here, because like I feel like Brandon Braga kind of got dragged through the mud a little bit, because like I feel like he got his the first credit I remember his name on is Timescape from TNG, and then he did like a ton of I love Timescape actually. I really enjoy it. He did a ton of Voyager episodes, and then he obviously became one of the showrunners on Enterprise. And I feel like working on Enterprise and doing a lot of stinkers there really dampened his shine. And it's like he does have some very obvious tells as a writer. And he does have his weaknesses, but I feel like he has a lot of strengths as well, which is just like he likes playing around with sci-fi conceits.
It's when you see Berman and
Timescape.
When you got the combination of Berman and Braga, that's where it's like,
yeah.
I think two things hurt him actually more than that. Yes, the Rick Berman Association, and the fact that he dated 7 of 9. A, because there's a bit of a power dynamic. Dated Jerry Ryan. He wasn't in the show. A, because there's a bit of a power dynamic. B, because Star Trek nerds would rather she be single so that they think they have a shot with her at some point. Let's just be honest here. Like if they see a guy dating someone that they really like, they're gonna not like him instinctually. So, but yeah, he was on Shuttlepod show I think last year. I've seen a few interviews of him. He's obviously intelligent, right? He's written great episodes, but you can tell he loves not just Star Trek, but the genre. Like he's very passionate about writing quality shows, not just churning them out, which he was forced to do. You know, Berman Air Trek, 26 episodes a season. This was filming, by the way, or airing concurrently with Deep Space Nine. Like imagine sitting down watching 2 hour-long shows week after week after week. So they had a lot to work on. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a case of like any writer, if you force them to stretch out their gimmick for like entire seasons, will eventually expose their writers. Yeah, like Overtime says that you have to crank out so much. Like Stephen Moffat on like Doctor Who, like if you give him one episode a season, he will he will create like the single best like episode of the season, like often. But if you make him write entire seasons, it becomes fucking nonsense. And it's like you need moderation, you need people to bounce off of, you need good writing partners who can compensate for your strengths, and you need the ability to take a breath and let your brain recharge. Because like sci-fi, there's a million concepts out there, but like there's only so many times you can approach it with a fresh angle before you just go, it's another anomaly, which I feel like he kind of got accused of when Enterprise started like churning out those kind of episodes in season 1 and 2.
Actually, I think Enterprise is mostly quality. I think When they try to retcon stuff is where they get into the troubled waters. Because like that Borg episode was so garbage that when I
Well,
think
yeah.
about bad Enterprise, there are certain things that jump to mind. But even Mr. Monosky, who we heaped praise on, did Time's Orphan with Grown Up Molly, Darkling, which I personally hate,
Yeah.
The Fight, which everyone has rated in like their bottom 5 overall
Very
episodes.
great,
So
yeah.
yeah, when you have 50 plus credits, you're going to have some stinkers, and same with Brennan.
Yeah, and I feel like with Braga, like he is at least very self-effacing, and he's very just like, yeah, no, I fucked up. That wasn't a great script. Like that work wasn't my best, and it's like you kind of got to give a like as I've grown older and like I gotten more into like the art of writing. Like, this is something I really appreciate about Stephen King. Like if you go back and read like the full word of like The Shining, like the newer editions of it, he's like, yeah, I wrote most of this while I was coked out of my brain on Quaaludes and like drinking like tons of whiskey. I was in a very bad place. That's why there's the whole massive interludes about the weird like hedge animals. It's like, guess what? Like if you can just be like self-aware about your weaknesses, I feel like that ages you a lot better. Like you come out of it a lot with a better reputation. And unlike someone like Rick Berman, who just constantly doubles down on his bad decisions and tries to act like he didn't do the shit he did. You know.
Let's talk about the Malon. Because I found them there's the first introduction to the Malon race. I think we're going to see them again at some point.
Yes.
I don't know if this season or
fairly
whatever.
soon. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think it's this season. I think it's next season. But it's the episode where they race to make the Delta Flyer and retrieve a probe.
That's right, yes.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. I found the Malon as we got a lot of concept for this race just in this one caricature because we essentially had the Quark, the Odo, the Worf, this one Malon representative being the entirety of his species, kind of showing us his little bit of, I think it was you auto commented that like he's like the Ferengi, but serious mode.
Done competently, yeah.
Yeah, and it's sort of like,
the sinister version.
Hey, capitalism, this is what we're about. We're just going to dump in your ecological zone and screw the consequences. These fish keep biting me. Oh, no.
How
dare they? They're the problem.
They do paint them more sympathetically in the future because there's an episode. Is it Juggernaut? It may be later in this season.
Juggernaut's fucking good episode. That's a good one.
But yeah, they play them more sympathetic because they are the victims. Well, the people hauling garbage they paint more sympathetic because they say we all know we're gonna die. It's a terminal job, but we get paid enough to provide for our family. That's why we're doing it. And who you really hate after watching that episode are
society.
The fat cat bureaucrats back on the Malon homeworld who are profiting massively off these people's shortened lives. And it adds that great depth of stinky, gross twinge to that society, which parallels our own very well. And you feel empathy, you feel irritation, you feel hatred, and they really do broaden them out in only like 3 episodes, I think they get.
Yeah, no, like for a series, a species that doesn't get a ton of play, like they leave an impression on the mind because they are just very competently and relatively subtly done. I would say, like all that's as far as I know, you never really see their homeworld. No. Like it's always just the garbage men you see. Like
Malon Prime, it's called.
Yeah, Malon Prime. Like imagine if the only Americans you ever met were postmen. Or something like that. You would have such a weird, slanted view of that society, and you kind of have to wonder what is Malon's.
Imagine if we called our planet Human Prime. Sorry, carry on.
That's a bad name. Go away. That's a bad name. And it's like, yeah, you get to straddle that line of sympathy, but also just like, one of our viewers, Overtime, was kind of like going over the fact that this guy's dumb. He's a fucking idiot. Yes, that's the point. Well, like he's short-sighted. He doesn't. Yeah, and then he's conspiratorial. He's mistrustful. He's the kind of person who is willing to massively shorten his own life so that his family will get a better life out of it. And that is a very certain kind of mindset and tells you something about the kind of person he is, both good and bad. And it's like that's a really interesting cross-section of a society.
He's short-sighted, but again, this is a good mirror because it forces us to examine our own society. Is he short-sighted, or is he savvy enough to know that even with technology in hand, he would never be accepted back home because too many people are making too much money off this. They are not going green energy as long as people are making fat stacks of cash. So maybe he's short-sighted. Maybe he's in the know. He's been doing this long enough that he knows it would never work.
Yeah, maybe he's just cynical and pessimistic. Maybe he's a realist. Because guess what?
We just
Those
don't
are
have an
two
answer, and that's good.
Maybe it's Maybelline. Okay.
All right. But no, it's like if you wanted a more direct like through line that's a bit more sort of like I suppose like makes more of an impression. Imagine you have the solution to world peace in your hand, and then you go to the United Nations and you announce it. How happy do you think every person and CEO who works at a weapons industry is going to be about your solution for world peace? Would you survive? These are people whose entire industry is literally built around death. Do you really think they're going to be receptive to it?
It happens now.
It makes you question. Yeah.
Everything from taxes to the oil lobbyists, like everything that is bad in this world, somebody is lobbying for it in your government because it's making them money. And that's just, that's how it works. And no one wants to talk about that in the utopist, idealist Star Trek. But every once in a while, it's good to sprinkle on those dark flecks.
It makes you think. Like, it's good sci-fi.
He's saying that
Am I saying world peace is too dangerous? To the weapons industry, yes, oddly enough.
Let's
you're about to find out.
Let's circle back around to Janeway, because I think there's more to unpack there in her storyline.
Yeah.
I'll try to keep this brief. There's a few people weighed in on this in memory of. Brandon Braga contemplated Janeway's predicament. If you think about it, since the show's inception, she's always been on the run, always been moving, always moving forward, no time to think about the consequences of her decision. Suddenly, when you hit 2 years of nothing, there's nothing to do but look back and face the demons of your decision. The writer said this, writer Joe Manowski, I don't think it was really sold. If you're going to have a big crisis like that, you can't do it in the course of a single episode, wrap it up at the end, and make it believable. It was the wrong way to go, and it didn't come off particularly well. No excuses. It was just a lot of pieces of different story elements. Janeway's actress Kate Mulgrew said, Janeway's heroism is now so well established that I'm always asking them to, rock the boat a little bit. It seems that when we do that, though, it's controversial. Night got really mixed reviews because people get uncomfortable watching a captain's depression, but I thought it was just such a wonderful thing to explore.
And she's right. This was something really good to go into because, again, like TV at the time was very much let's wrap it up and move on to next week. There was addressing things like mental health and, the reason she's avoiding command because of some sort of past mistake was something Picard covered it a little bit, but not to this kind of extent. And it wouldn't really be developed into more like serious TV shows until like the late 2000s, when people would address this kind of stuff.
If you think about it, like both Picard and Sisko have like elements of their character that crop up every now and then. Like Picard always has all the Borg trauma, and Sisko has more Borg trauma and the other stuff with like his wife, which comes up every now and then, and like. I don't know. I feel like there's more opposition. Like I don't remember any opposition to Picard dealing with his trauma in that way, or like the family. And I feel like Sisko is, literally. And Sisko's reaction.
Sorry,
it's gonna be a good when we get to that. And Sisko's like whole thing with dealing with like becoming like opening himself up to being a father and like and also to being a potentially a dating partner for Cassidy. It's like. There's no pushback on that, but the instant Janeway feels guilt about a decision that people have criticized her for, like in the fandom as well. Like I feel like the pushback of like, it was the obviously heroic thing to do, but what a dumb decision, you doomed yourself. And it's like she's allowed to feel complicated emotions about it and beat yourself up about it. You can make the right decision and still feel like you lost. Like that's a perfectly valid emotional dimension. And
is it possible to do everything right and still lose?
Yes, it actually is, in a way.
This episode probably should have been a two-parter, because between interesting concepts and stories that needed expanding, I think it calls for it. I said when we were watching that I actually didn't like that part about it. It's hard to put into words. I feel like I probably side with the Balanas of the world, where, yes, I understand why she's going through that. If I was in her position, I'd absolutely be going through the same thing. But she has a ship to run, and when her people need her the most, she's sulking in her room. And like I said, I completely understand it on a head level, but in my heart, I would be bothered if I were Chakotay holding things together for her. Part of me would resent that. Part of me would be like, I'm glad I can help her through this tough time. it really is a sticky wicket, and you see that it's good in the briefing room scene where everybody has something to say about that. They're like, "Where is she? We've been in here for months now, or weeks, whatever it was."
53
Even
days, I think it was, so close to
Chakotay
2 months.
snaps with a bit of good acting, where he's like, "She can run the ship from wherever the hell she wants." Understood? And everyone's like,
Yeah.
"Whoa, okay, calm down,
Yeah.
Chakotay."
Yeah.
So they sell that strain of the void right from the jump.
Yeah, and not only is it a good scene for Chakotay, but it also speaks to like because he's a supporting Janeway, but you can tell it's having a toll on him as well. Like he's
Sure.
the first officer, but he's having to act as captain for 2 months now. Because like we didn't obviously get a time frame on exactly when Janeway decided to just like hole herself up in her quarters, but you have to assume it's been a
As soon
while.
as the lights went out, right? I'm done. I am done.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's like, all right, I'm out of here.
I have this much trauma to work through. I'm starting right now.
No stars, no me.
Here's there ain't shit out there to distract me from my own bad decisions. I'm not interested.
Yeah.
But I kind of like that it's complicated and complex, and that there's like messy emotions about that because that's very realistic. And it's like the idea that there's pushback on that, like against the idea that captains can be multifaceted, nuanced, like captains who can hold multiple emotional viewpoints at one point and be, quote unquote, bad people in the way that they react to things. That's good.
Well, yeah, I don't think it's poor writing. Like I say, on a conscious level, you understand it. But I also I side with the crew because they need that the most right now. And filling the void, we have a combination of fucking Chakotay and Neelix. Which if you want to be stuck in a starless void for however many months, are those the two you want guiding you through it? Probably not. Although I do like both of them, but.
It is one of those funny things where it's like you look at like the command crew of Voyager, and it's a lot of very like staid people who are not like very explosive personalities. Like you think of the TNG crew, you've got like Riker, who is like this big bombastic like personality. You've got Troy, who's very empathetic. You've got Worf, who is reserved, but he has like Klingon bombacity at times. You've got Data.
You have to get down to Data before you match Tuvok and Seven.
Data is still over the top in his way. Meanwhile on Voyager, you've got Chakotay, who is like by definition just very stoic. He doesn't emote too much. And it's partly an acting thing, but it's also that's how he's written. He's a reliable writer. He's a reliable character who does not get shaken by much. And then you've got Tuvok, who is a Vulcan. You've got 7 of 9, who is a ex-Borg. You've got Harry. Harry, I guess, and like B'Elanna are the two most expressive, and Paris, and they're all on the very like lower end of the command chain. So it's like when you lose Janeway, who is like the most charismatic of the top half of the command crew, there is a void being left there.
Janeway is very clearly the glue, but then behind her is Tuvok is her glue. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
it's glue all the way down. I did have another big section I wanted to talk about, but I realized we've been going on for a while, and Idle's disassociating. So I'm
in sleepy mode.
It's a great episode.
It is a really.
I promise you guys, season 7 is going to be a ride.
Season 7.
5, sorry.
In which case, it's time to go over to. Oh, come on. Oh, there.
Bread.
The button was
bread.
Bread. Gentlemen, what is your bread for the episode? I have one in my head I'd like to steal, if that's okay.
Go for it.
Okay, my bread
Make
of the
me a loaf.
episode is where all the lights went off on the ship. Everything just went completely pitch black. And like you said, what we're saying when we're watching along, you don't ever see things go that black, where buttons don't even respond. And it did address like, oh, the holodeck's still running, but the lights are off on the holodeck. And it's like, it has its own power source, but still the lights went out. It's like, even the holodeck's like, no, I've got to keep it cool. I've got to be like everyone else on the deck. I've got to be like all the other decks. But no, I did really like that moment, and leads to another, another moment like of Neelix having his panic attack, which is something I've done in my life. I've had plenty of panic attacks, and definitely felt that in myself with that moment, just being like, you're already in the pitch black of space on this bucket of metal flying through a vacuum, and then all of a sudden the lights go out and you've got no light. Like, that's...
All right, Bones, calm it down.
Yeah. Mind if I throw up on you? No. That's my bread. How about you, Otto? What's your bread?
Did the holodeck need to stay on? Did that add anything to that scene? I don't think it did. If it was just like the cube there, and then they still turn around and the little alien there for the jump scare,
But the ray gun was fun. I like the ray
I think
gun.
the holodeck set wasn't there, so they just stayed on the power. They just turned the lights off of the Proton and just went, "Oh yeah, it's got its own independent power supplies. We're going to support this through all the complaints of Picard season 3."
My bread is the battle with the Malon at the end. They slowly drift into frame. They're blocking the entrance. We get the cool spatial charges. We said 100 times in the watch along how expertly they lit the exterior. No stars, no stellar body until the last 5 seconds. Everything's got to be done with running lights or explosions, basically. They even rigged a little like photon flare. They did everything they could. They probably had a big whiteboard with like, how can we light the outside of the ship? So that was cool. The fact that the aliens charged to the rescue after they made like a diplomatic. This is kind of wide for Bez. It's the stump. It's a large piece of bread, but it's that battle because it's well lit, well executed. It's an emotional climax. It's everything you want. It did leave me wanting at some point. I want to see a ship like reinforce their shields and go to warp through a ship and blow it up as they like fly through it. That
you need to watch.
That's The Last Jedi.
Yeah, The Last Jedi. That does actually happen.
Oh, well, that's not real sci-fi. So the Malon fight would be my bread. I like that.
Stars.
For me, it probably would be just like the makeup. Actually, like the Malon are such a good design because like they don't overplay it here. Like I thought there's a good amount of restraint on seeing just a standard Malon with like the little bits of radiation like starting to show. The diving bell-esque like outfit, which we kind of picked on a few times, which was like a little bit more Bioshocky. Just a very unique aesthetic for a sci-fi race.
20,000 Leagues Under the Sea next door.
Well, guess what? Like the amount of like aqua punk that goes into like sci-fi, and then on the Void aliens, like I really liked the way that they just look very, very alien and very, very weird. They looked like it was designed explicitly just to show up well in the dark, which good design.
Kind of reminded me of Geordie LaForge in that episode where he turns into a different being, kind of
a weird strobing alien. Yeah.
I mean,
oh
please.
Yeah. And it's like I also appreciate like this is something that I've come to kind of appreciate after Discovery season 1. It's just like the prosthetics that do not obscure the ability for an actor to emote and act, which because the one Void alien we get, he gives a good performance. It is solid. It is not obscured by a fairly heavy makeup job. Like, and it's like that's a fine line to do. Like when you want to make something convincingly alien, but you don't want to like get in the way of the performance. So that'd be my bread.
So this has me thinking. Voyager does certain aliens really well. You have the Malon, you have the Phage, but when we get to the Kazon, I think their design is fine, but I think what they're missing is some other identifying characteristic. The Phage have the organ, the whole organ thing. Malon had the radiation, what it's doing to their bodies and their society. What did the Kazon have besides they're primitive, but they had this giant super ship which overpowers Voyager.
The Kazons.
Like, I feel like they have the makeup, but they don't have the other aspect to their society that would elevate them into like they're just infighting all the time. That's not really a bold characteristic.
Well, there's a lot of problems with the Kazon.
Yeah. That's why they got left behind. All right, let's go.
Even Martha Hackett couldn't save them. So.
True, yeah.
Let's go on to our press the right button.
The best advice I can give you is to just be yourself.
You're the worst thing that ever happened to Zek. You're the worst thing that ever happened to me.
Actually, that's the second best piece of advice.
In fact, you're the worst thing that ever happened to the entire Ferengi Alliance.
No.
I knew you'd do that joke.
Yeah, it's an evergreen.
You sound like Cookie Monster.
You are Cookie. Stars, give me your best and worst moments from this episode.
So much to choose from in terms of the best. That's not like rating Andromeda. Like
the opposite problem.
You know what? I'm just gonna be a basic male image, and I'm gonna go. My best is Captain Proton. I love Captain Proton. Wow. I am a sucker for the 50s stuff. The fact that this is where they decide to introduce it in such an episode that has nothing to do with it, like just like naturally threading it in. it's one of my. It is probably my favorite of the holodeck conceits, like that runs through. Like you compare it to like the Sherlock Holmes stuff or the Gothic novels. I think this is easily the one I like the most. And like the fact that it allows you to play around with character dynamics. Like you get a bit more. Like Harry gets more to do and a bit more to act in. Like he does like being Buster Kincaid and getting to like over emote and like be a bit more goofy than he otherwise is on the bridge. Tom gets to goof around a little bit in a kind of charming way, and Seven gets in on it as well, which is always a fun little like when that comes back at the end with Captain Proton the rescue. Iron Borg dismantles Satan's robot. Just it's so much fun. Like it is not objectively the best part of the episode, but it's my favorite part of the episode, maybe. You want to say something? I can tell.
Yes. All right. I want to ask you, are you one of those guys who feels that heavy episodes like this need the comedic moments, or are you okay with 45 minutes of heavy?
It depends on how heavy you're getting. I feel like you could have done this without Captain Proton and it would have been fine. It would have been a little bit dour. But if you have like, say like a DS9 episode and you don't crack any jokes, like, you have to have a bit of levity. Like it depends on how heavy you're going.
There is, as much as I love like Battlestar Galactica is like one of my favorite TV series all time, other than Star Trek, obviously.
Just grim.
There is an episode literally where the worst thing ever happens, and the entire crew just go into full depression mode, and there is no levity, and it is a very you have to be in a right state of mind to even approach the episode. It is dark.
Yeah. And it's like that's where it's like if you have to, there's a balance to be struck, and you can't go too far one or the other. I think that's adequately threaded the needle. The worst moment for me, what would it be? I'm really struggling here. There's not a lot in this episode that's bad. You know what? I'm gonna go for some low hanging fruit. The fact that like we started this series with the conceit of we only have so many like photon torpedoes. How many did we use in this episode? We used like 20. Like we used a lot of photon torpedoes.
We used one for about a 3-second flare to illuminate the outline of a ship. Like that's a great use of our photons.
Yeah, like you could have just set a phaser to wide beam. That probably would have had the same effect. But yeah, it's like that's we talk about the strengths of Voyager. That's one of the weaknesses of Voyager. Is it's like it's attempts to set up a continuity thing that ended up going completely fucking nowhere, and this is one of the worst examples of that.
Go on, Otto. Best and worst.
Is it laziness? Because they built an entire shuttlecraft. Couldn't they have just thrown a line in some season 3 where they're like, well, we built a few more photons? I don't know. I had it and I lost it. This beer won't even tell me what percentage it is, so I blame the WeMac Sun King Brewery. Right. I had another one. Maybe it'll come to me. But one of my worst, when Doc steps early on the holodeck, bad green screening. And this is an episode with a lot of really great effects, and we complimented them already. It just wasn't up to the task. Best moment, and this is kind of what would be my second bread. It sticks with me when I think about the episode from time to time.
We've had one.
The alien in... But what about second bread? When the alien is in sick bay, and Janeway's talking to it, she props him up, helps him call his ship. You feel a lot of sympathy for this alien, who's a good guy. Like they attack him or whatever, but they don't tug on that thread for long. It's clear there was a misunderstanding that's quickly resolved. Great first contact, will help you. I need to let them know that you're a friend. I just liked that whole scene. And I felt something for an alien who we don't even get a name for. Like normally when you don't get a name, we bash them on the review. We're like, they're so bad they didn't even get a name. That wasn't the case here. So that was maybe heartwarming is too strong, but I felt a lot of goodwill in that scene in the middle of kind of a despairing episode. So I liked that. It was an oasis.
I'll go with my worst moment. Which I'm being like stars. I'm being needlessly picky, but I'm just gonna go for the fact the holodeck. Like, why did the lights turn off on the holodeck? I know it was there for dramatic effect, but it made no sense. If the holodeck's on or it's off. The holodeck isn't playing games; it's just going like, "Oh, the lights outside's off. I'm going to turn my light off on this program." Like, okay, that's probably my worst moment. It's just a little bit of continuity nudging. Best moment, there is a lot to pick from. I don't know. I kind of like the scene where Harry's on the bridge and he's playing his clarinet, and then Tuvok walks in, and instantly he's just like, "No, chill, man." Like like you say, even
That was
Tuvok's got his
great.
hair down, and he's like, "Got
His
time
hair's
to
never been more down.
No, yeah, it's like he's literally chill. He's thinking like, you know what, Harry? Yes, I'd love to listen to your clarinet solo, and it's just like, wow, this is.
Yeah, and then you cut back to it, and he's still listening to it.
He's jamming, he's nodding, he's tapping his
Dude,
foot.
if they cut back, he could be playing the jug, he could be playing anything, and it would have been hilarious. They missed a trick there.
Yeah, I quite like that. I like it when you see a little bit of levity between, especially on Tuvok as well, who is sort of often known to be more of a hard ass, especially like in the early seasons when in the Marquee crew and with like other characters that have a bit of Paris especially. But then like Kim's got his feet up playing his clarinet, and even Tuvok appreciates. Yeah, it's bleak at the moment. You carry on. Like, what can I do?
Yeah, the other big Tuvok moment is like perhaps a cortical implants, like another time perhaps.
Yes.
The view from my quarters has been less than stellar lately. He was full of good stuff. Since Overtired showed up on short notice, I'll also give the worst from an unnamed chat member who said, the fact that the Malon are so stupid they don't realize they can make more money by being like the innovator than. And we do, we're real good at explaining away Trek plot holes like, oh, well, maybe he knew it wouldn't be received, blah, blah, blah. But it does, on first blush, it does kind of clang against your brain that, like, why is he being so obstinate? So there's chat's worst moment.
Some people are just dicks. On that note...
I can show you my rating code.
Schiller rating 3.5.
Associational rating norm -3.
That's much too low a rating.
It's much too low a rating.
Seeing an unsatisfactory rating on a member of my crew.
Oh, dear. Gentlemen, please get out your rating criteria, please. What are we... Oh, stars. No, stars. This is your job. What is our rating criteria?
I nominate that we officially change it to calling it the rating code instead of the rating criteria.
Okay, gentlemen, what is the rating code? What is our Schiller rating code for this episode?
Or you can call it Schiller rating. That's funny, too.
All right. How many audience of one concertos of Echoes of the Void out of 10 would you like to give this episode?
That's a lot. Audience of one concertos, Echoes of the Void.
Is there a character limit in Sheets cells?
There is not, no. Well, I think it's something like 5 million, but audience of one concertos,
we'll
Echoes of the Void.
We'll get there.
Okay. Go on also. Oh, me? Okay. I can't think of a lot wrong with this episode. And I think the only thing I can think of... I had my complaint about the holodeck, but that's so minor. It's not like... That doesn't impact the story whatsoever. I feel that the fact that my only actual complaint would be I wish this was a two-parter only strengthens the episode to say that I want more of it. I'm actually going to give this a 10 out of 10. This is... Wow. Yeah, I have nothing bad to say about it.
Yeah.
I don't... The flaws that I do have are not major flaws. They are Star Trek-y flaws. They are production flaws. It's not anything that's taken me out of the episode to kind of go like, I didn't have a great time here. And I think it's very successful at broadening the characterizations for every character, including Janeway, including Chakotay. We get some moments with Tuvok and Seven as well. How Seven's integrated onto the ship, minor characters. And it carries on a surprising amount of serialization for a show that is very episodic, and it's a great opener for an episode, and only like we said before, it's a great episode to show someone as their first Voyager because you get a little bit of everything in here. So yeah, 10 out of 10 for me. Go on, Auto.
10 out of 10 what?
Oh, sorry, 10 out of 10 audience of one concertos of Echoes of the Void.
All right. I'll do that thing I like to do. This is a 9.9 audience of one Echo Concerto Void thingies. And I looked it up and I thought, what did I get peak performance? Because it's kind of similar where it has a little bit of everything, a lot of good team building, everybody contributes to the whole thing. And I gave that a 9.9, which may have been a touch strong, maybe not. And I couldn't give it lower than that because this is such a stellar episode. But I've realized that I enjoy being emotionally devastated in my media. And this, while it had an emotional climax, it was not one that made you feel things. I feel like that's the element that really puts episodes over the top. So while this was extremely competent in every area of the game, like you said, they have the fucking formula on lock. They are professionals and they produce professional quality sci-fi. it was just missing that little hook that made me like, oh, like I'm going to think about this for the next week. So 9.9, very happy to give it that strong. It is excellent episode.
Go on, Stars.
It starts.
There you go. Wait for my cue. I want my cue. I want my cue. God damn it!
Okay,
I've been here for years. I'm owed my cue. So I think I have to kind of agree with you, Otto. This is not a episode that has like a gigantic emotional hook to it. Oh, kitties. It's not The Visitor. It's not The Inner Light. This is not It's Only a Paper Moon. It doesn't devastate you.
It's not Drone.
Yeah, it's not Drone. And it's like I can't blame it for doing that. You can't do that every week because like that lessens the emotional impact. You also kind of get into like misery trauma that you need like levity, you need lightness, you need like a relatively normal day is important every now and then.
I need N+1 people to die in this episode because last episode had N.
I think I figured like I love a good like emotionally or devastating episode. I figured my limit for that was when I started watching Squid Game, and I kind of got like about 5 or 6 episodes in. And I was just like, you know what, this is I need some levity now. Like I need something nice now because this is just dreary.
I kind of had that with The Boys as well. Like I watched that episode, I thought this is a perfectly good episode. I cannot keep with this. This will depress me. But it's like, as you say, it's just perfect. Like, this is exactly what this episode should be. There is not much you can do to improve this, not from a writing perspective, not from a cinematography perspective. Like, if you remastered it with, like, 2024, like, CGI, maybe you could do it slightly better. But even then, it's like, this is perfect for what it needs to be. Like, fix the CGI on Doc and the green screen. That's it. Like, what else is there really to fix? So for me, I would have to give this 9.5 single audience concertos of Echoes of the Void out of 10.
Well, that brings this episode to a stunning 9.8 on our review metric, and it sits as the in the top 10 of episodes we have reviewed.
Which it might end up being like 10th by the time we finish season 5. So we'll see.
Sitting equal with the magnificent Ferengi and just above Under the Cloak of War. So yeah, that's the caliber of episodes we're dealing with on here. Also, any final words? Because I feel like you've still got like an essay of things on this.
You know, sometimes we knock. Well, we always knock it for like they put someone in peril, but no one's going to die. This one cleverly sidesteps it because it presents a new race essentially that can die, and then they make you feel for them. So someone might die. Maybe it's not the main cast, but as long as someone is in peril, I feel like that still gives you that taste of the element without shattering believability that no one's going to die. It's Star Trek, so I like that.
Awesome.
Like they could have just introduced the Malon to be the antagonists here, but they gave you a third party for a reason. So I like that.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Well constructed.
On that note, thank you guys. If you're on stream, stick about. We're going to be watching Drone, the second episode in our Summer of Voyager. For everyone watching recording, we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Live long and prosper, and ta-ra!